Alright guys, I am joined Darklight with Quantum Inquisition, friend of Spencer's, wormholer, and been in wormholes in general, off and on, through my career for at least 6 years. Not the best wormholer, but pretty decent, and she wanted me to point out some scanning tricks and tools, and just a general overview of basic scanning inside of a wormhole. Alright, so before you go into the wormhole, there's a few things you're going to want. You're going to want a ship that has a scanning bonus, especially if you're fresh in. You can do it in a Heron and so forth, but if you can, I highly recommend training up into a T2 scanner, or an Astero maybe. But if you can't afford it, a Heron will do. But at the very base, you need this, which is a Sisters expanded probe launcher and Sisters core scanner probes. You can use there's other types of probe launchers you can use out there. I highly recommend the expanded for a few things. The main reason being is that if you look in my inventory right now, I have 8 regular scanner probes in there and have 16 Sisters combats, and I will demonstrate the use of that now. Basically, when you decloak to launch probes, your probe launcher automatically starts reloading for you, so you don't even have to think about it. You don't have to decloak later to reload probes. And the effect of that will be demonstrated in a later video. Alright, so we're going to demonstrate that now. You can immediately cloak back up. I'll demonstrate this little trick as well in a later video. See, I automatically reloaded my probe launcher. Don't even have to think about it. It's a huge bonus and a huge benefit when you don't have to decloak multiple times to take care of your probe launchers. Alright, so the other things you want to have on your scan ship is modules like this, like a scan acquisition array, range finding array, and pinpointing array. These help you with your scan strength, and you can find your scan strength here. When you launch your probes, you'll be able to see different formations, that kind of thing. But a lot of what you need to be looking at is right up here. You got your scan strength, you've got your scan deviation, and your scan duration. Those are pretty much your important stats. Here's the different formations of your probes. In general, in scanning, nobody really uses much other than the pinpoint formation. You do have a bigger formation, but I'll show you in a later video pretty much what this does. Stick to the pinpoint formation. Alright, and as you can see, once you launch your probes, you get this little window right here where if you open up your scanner, you'll have this little window right here which shows you the area that each one of your probes will scan in, and then the overlapping effect of all of the and signatures in system. Like signatures are these little red dots right here. Things you can just warp to right off the gate are going to be in green. You can warp directly to those. But anything in red with like an X and percentage points and all this stuff is the result of a signature that you have to scan down. That can be anything. That can be a wormhole. It can be gas sites. It can be data sites. It can be... there's a lot of stuff it could be. And the point of it is, if you're exploring, you're looking for that kind of thing, this is mainly what you're paying attention to. The other tip for scanning in wormholes is you want to stay cloaked as often as possible. As you can see right now, my cloak is active. I'm not moving toward anything that's going to decloak me. I want to stay cloaked up as much as possible. Especially in a scanning ship, you're very, very vulnerable. Alright, so now that you have your probes out in space and you're at a safe distance from them so nobody decloaks you, you're all safe. The main thing you need to do at that point is start scanning. And some people pick the first signature on the list. They want to scan that signature. I have a few tricks, and that'll work. You could scan that. And the way you would do that is swap up to, say, for basic scanning, Like swap up to say 16 AU and start working your way down. And we'll demonstrate what that looks like now. This is not the way I scan, but this is the way that the base idea of how scanning works. And you see that? My first signature got a little stronger. Now it's at 9.4% signal strength. And one thing I will demonstrate here is you see a lot of people struggling to get their probes, this signature right in the middle of their probes. It doesn't have to be directly in the middle. You see them looking at it from all odd angles, trying to get it up there. I've seen it on videos of people doing instructions and so forth. I've seen plenty of new bros do it. It doesn't need to be that way. Really, all you need is two angles to figure this out and get it perfectly. First one is directly above. Just drag over your scanner, and then look at it from the side. There you go. Now that you really only just need those two measurements, top and side. Top and side is all you need to worry about. It's a lot faster than doing this number right here and just dragging this thing all over the place, right? So we're going to reduce to 8 AU. We've reduced to 8 AU, and as you can see, probes do their job. You get a little stronger, you got 14.1% now. Go down to your 4. I forgot to check my side, but I could see this was in there, so we really didn't care. As long as your signature is somewhere in this middle area where they all overlap, you're good. Every time you go down, it gets a little stronger. Now you're at 78.1%. Gonna go another AU down and scan again. Now I've got my signature and I'm going to warp to it. The thing about these signatures is that even if you warp at 0, you're not going to land directly on it. I'm actually going to demonstrate that right now. Let's warp to 0 in the signature I just scanned. You're not actually going to land quite at 0. Alright. Just a few tips about wormholes real quickly. This is an appropriate time to talk about it. You see this blue aura around the wormhole? You won't see that around most wormholes. With this blue aura, everything about the wormhole tells you something. Everything about its appearance tells you something. Everything. So this blue aura tells you that this is a frig hole. Okay? It is a frig hole. Only the smallest ships can... And if you look at your info, it'll tell you, it'll correlate with this phrase down here, only the smallest ships can pass this wormhole. And that actually means frigates and destroyers only. Frigates and destroyers only. This other line is, this wormhole leads to null security space. We know this is a null hole. Interesting thing about null is that you can see what kind of the system on the other side looks like through the hole. I'm not real familiar with null, so I don't know this. But you can actually see what the region looks like in the wormhole. That comes into factor later for identifying different types of wormhole. Some people out there can identify. Give me 1 second. Some people can identify the different types of wormholes just by the color of the wormhole, and even what region it's from, if it's, say, like a high-sec or a low-sec wormhole. Alright, so as you see, we warped to 0. We didn't exactly land at 0 on it. We landed about 6,000 off. That can be 6,000, it can be 10,000. It really just depends. If you're scanning in a fleet or something like that, you do not need to bookmark from your scanner window down here. You don't need to bookmark from here. Like, for example, right-clicking on it and going through your save location procedure, because it'll actually save the point that it just landed at, which is a considerable distance off the hull and outside of its jump range. If you're warping a fleet in, you want the fleet to warp in at actual zero on the hull. So the best way to do that is to warp to the signature and then bookmark it from there. Don't bookmark it from your scanner window unless you're just scanning for yourself and you're just trying to do your own thing. Then that's cool. But if you're trying to deal with the fleet, don't bookmark from the scanner window. All right, we're going to demonstrate another situation how I actually scan. I put my probes to 8 AU instead of further out like 16 or 32. Little tip about scanning in wormholes: every signature that I've seen in general, like 99.9% of signatures, are going to be within 8 AU of a planet. So what I like to do is I like to look for signatures near the planet. See, there's multiple signatures near this planet over here, so what I'm going to do is say I'm fresh in system, and say I'm looking for wormholes over everything else. I just want to find more wormholes. I'm not worried about gas sites, data sites, or anything. I'm just scanning a chain. I want more wormholes. A little tip about wormholes: is they scan stronger than pretty much anything else out there except for gas sites. Gas sites and wormholes tend to be the highest and the most easily scanned. When it finishes scanning, wormholes will generally be the highest on your signal strength over here if there's any in the area. See, I did it within 8 AU and I get multiple signatures. This is probably a wormhole. This is probably a wormhole. This is definitely a wormhole. So I'm going to go ahead and select. If your skills are high enough, you can actually skip 4 AU. This is how I scan. You can skip 4 AU and go straight to 2 AU. Make sure your stuff is centered up a little bit and analyze it. You can skip a step. And I should either have it or be very near to having it after this pass. And to have the wormhole. I personally usually don't warp at 0, even though I know I'm going to land off the hull. I'll usually end up warping at like 10 or 20 km, just to be safe.
Warp drive active.
There have been times where there might be something sitting on the hull, maybe you don't want to land on them. Landing at 10 kilometers keeps you a little bit safer. It's just a habit I have. You don't have to copy it. And throughout all this, you're generally going to keep your D-scan window up and running. And as you can see, your scanner probes are always on D-scan. So if somebody's in system with you and they know those probes aren't theirs, then they know you're in system. They don't know you specifically in system if you stayed cloaked. They know, at least they know somebody is in system doing something. The only time probes will be on D-scan window when there's nobody in system is if the person who had those probes died while having them outside their ship. Then they'll hang in space for like 2 hours. All right, we're looking at this one. This is clearly a high sec. Looks like our high. Yep. Larger ships can pass this worm. We're going to demonstrate here the white aura. The white aura correlates with this phrase: larger ships can pass this wormhole. It correlates with that phrase. And as you can see, I can look through the hole and I can tell from right here that's a golden. That's a golden hole with a little black in it, so that's going to be one of the outer Amar regions. Maybe Galante Amar kind of crossover space. I recognize that nebula. That's going to be like, I can get a general idea of where this is at. I know at the very least it's going to be in Amar territory. Alright, so that's pretty much what you need to know about scanning signatures. Some things get really difficult to scan down. Say, for example, data sites tend to be a little bit harder to scan. If you look right here, you'll see scanning difficulty level 2. And then let's pick another signal. Let's pop these probes back out to 8. Just do a quick scan. I want to show y'all something. You'll see things with different scanning difficulties. Well, none of them came on good enough to see it. Well, the data site did. It still says it. I'm not going to fool around with it too much. I'm not going to waste the time on it. But basically, the tighter you get and the more you know about your target, it'll tell you the scanning difficulty. If it's scanning difficulty 3, then it starts to get a lot more difficult. Scanning difficulty 2s are a little bit more difficult. The lower skills you have and the weaker ship you have, the harder it'll become. And sometimes, if you don't have enough skills and you have a weak ship, you won't even be able to scan the signature all the way down. You get down to like 1 AU, and you're like sitting at like 98%. 95%. You can't get it over that, and you won't be able to scan the signature, which is probably the reason you need decent scan skills and a decent scanning ship. Now, these different formations you can use, like I said, I use the pinpoint formation. You can use the large spread formation as a method to get just like a quick overview of the system. That's not really effective with these scan probes, so pretty much keep it on launch pinpoint formation. And that's pretty much the basics of scanning. Remember, 8 AU of a planet, and then move forward from there. Wormholes and gas sites will usually be at the top, with wormholes usually scanning stronger than gas sites. And if you're just scouting chains, it's the best way to do it. You can just eliminate a lot of signatures that way. If it jumps immediately, if you have good skills and it's the highest on there, it's probably a wormhole, and it's probably what you need to scan. And that's going to cover that for today. And the next video, we'll cover combat scanning, and we'll have a friend doing a demonstration for us. Take care.